Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are taking a deep dive into something huge, India's National Education Policy 2020. This isn't just a small tweak, it's a complete rethink of the entire education system, designed to change how millions of people learn. So, let's get into it and figure out what this all really means.
You know, if you've been through the Indian education system, some things probably sound familiar. That knot in your stomach before a big exam, the endless nights memorizing facts you'd forget a week later, or that moment you were forced to choose science, arts, or commerce. For so many, that wasn't just a phase, that was school. Well, to tackle exactly those issues, India hit the reset button in 2020. We're talking about the first massive policy change in over 34 years. It's a bold plan to reimagine education from the time a child is 3 all the way through their school life. So what's actually changing? Let's break it all down.
Okay, here's our game plan for today. We'll start with why this change was so desperately needed. Then, we'll get into the new 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4 structure. After that, we'll see how learning is supposed to happen outside the textbook, how report cards and exams are getting a major facelift, and, crucially, the role teachers play in all of this. And finally, we'll pull back and look at the big picture for India's future.
So, first things first, why go through all this trouble? Why such a massive overhaul? Well, the policy itself points to some pretty serious cracks in the old foundation.
Let this number sink in for a second. Over 5 crore. That's more than 50 million children in primary school who can't read, write, or do basic math at their grade level. The policy doesn't mince words. It calls this a severe learning crisis. It's an emergency that has to be tackled head-on. And here's the other part of that crisis. Look at this chart. It's what we can call the dropout funnel. See, in middle school, almost everyone's enrolled. But watch what happens next. The numbers just start to fall off a cliff. By the time we get to the last 2 years of school, nearly half the students are gone. The system was just losing people. So, how do you fix a leaky system? You start by redesigning the whole thing. And that brings us to maybe the most famous part of the new policy, a brand new structure for schooling.
For as long as most of us can remember, it's been the 10+2 system. Well, that's out. In its place, we have this new 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4 design. Now, the big change isn't just the numbers. Look at the age range. It now starts at age 3. For the very first time, early childhood education is part of the formal system. And this is huge because we know that 85% of a child's brain develops before the age of 6.
So this new structure creates a whole learning journey. You start with the foundational stage. That's all about playing, discovering, and learning through activity. Then you ease into the preparatory stage with light textbooks and more interaction. Next is the middle stage, where you start getting subject teachers for tougher, more abstract ideas. And all of this leads to the secondary stage, where you dive deep and, this is key, you get real choices in what you study.
But, you know, a new structure doesn't mean much if you're still doing the same old thing inside the classroom. So let's look at how the actual experience of learning is supposed to change.
This quote from the policy really says it all. The big idea is to shift away from just memorizing stuff for an exam, learning what to learn, and move towards building actual skills. It's about teaching kids how to think critically, how to be creative, and how to solve problems.
And here it is, a real game changer. Those rigid walls between science, arts, and commerce, they're coming down. The separation between so-called academic subjects and vocational ones, gone. A student can literally decide to study physics alongside fashion design, or learn biology with a class on baking. It's about building a path based on your passion. And to make sure learning is hands-on, the policy introduces something really interesting. A 10-day bagless period for kids in grades 6 to 8. And yeah, it's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. 10 days of school, no bags required.
So what do you do without your books? You get your hands dirty. Students will get to do internships with local experts. We're talking carpenters, gardeners, potters, artists. It's about real-world skills. This practical focus is popping up everywhere, with things like coding being introduced right from middle school. And to build a really strong learning base, the policy pushes for teaching in the mother tongue until at least grade 5, because all the research shows it's the best way for kids to truly understand concepts. Of course, if you're going to change what you teach and how you teach it, you absolutely have to change how you test it. And that's why the NEP is calling for a radical rethink of both exams and report cards. So, here's the bottom line. The goal is to get rid of the high-pressure cooker system that fuels a massive coaching industry and causes so much stress. The whole point is to turn assessment from a scary final judgment into a helpful tool that actually aids learning. So say goodbye to report cards that are just a list of marks. Now students will get a 360-degree progress card. And it's not just the teacher's opinion anymore. It's a full-circle view that includes self-assessment, where students reflect on their own learning, and even peer assessment from their classmates. It's about seeing the whole student, their skills, their progress, everything, not just a score.
And what about the big one, the board exams? Well, they're not going away, but they're being transformed. You can see the shift right here. We're moving from a single high-stakes event that's all about memorization to a lower-stakes test that focuses on core concepts. And maybe most importantly, students will get 2 chances to take it each year. That just takes so much of that do-or-die pressure off.
Now, you can have the best plans in the world, but none of this works without one group of people, the teachers. The policy makes it very clear that they are at the absolute heart of this transformation. One of the key ideas here is something called continuous professional development, or CPD. Basically, every single teacher will need to do 50 hours of training every year. This is all about making sure they stay on top of the latest teaching techniques, whether that's play-based learning or how to use new classroom technology. And to raise the bar right from the start, the policy is setting a new standard. By the year 2030, the minimum qualification for anyone who wants to become a teacher will be a 4-year integrated B.Ed degree. The goal is to make teaching a highly respected profession, right up there with fields like medicine or engineering. All right, so when you put all of these pieces together, the new structure, the flexible learning, the new assessments, and the focus on teachers, what's the big picture? What's the ultimate goal here? So let's just quickly recap the main story. This is all about building a system that values critical thinking over just memorizing facts. It's about giving students real flexibility and choice. It's about looking at their all-round development, not just their marks. It's about using the mother tongue to make sure learning sticks. And holding it all together is the idea of empowering teachers to lead this change. Look, the policy gives us this incredibly detailed and ambitious roadmap for the future. But a plan on paper is one thing. Making it happen is another. So the real work, it starts now. And it leaves us with a really important question for everyone: students, teachers, parents. How do we all come together to actually build this new future for education in India? That's the challenge and the opportunity that lies ahead.